Okay, sorry this video isn't a little better put together or better thought out, but this is just to show some efficiency tips when digitizing footprints in Illustrator. What I tend to do is there's two ways to duplicate. Instead of, getting the rectangle tool or hitting M and drawing new rectangles for every single building, and we don't want to use the pen tool and click the corners, it takes too long. What we do is we will select an existing building, and you can either copy it and paste it, or if you have your selection tool, your general selection tool, which is V, you can hover over the one that you want, like that. And I don't know, I'm using the Alt key right now. So Alt and click and drag duplicates exactly the shape you have, and you can just kind of drag it to the next place you want it. And in these kind of more populated environments, most buildings address the street, so I don't know if you can see, but they're almost all the same orientation, and they change a bit, right? So in this street, it's kind of angled up a little bit, and so is this one. So I'll want to actually, twist my rectangles to mimic that. And then on this street, I probably want to use the same orientation, but a different orientation that's all unique to this one, right? So I'll show you when we get going along. So duplicating efficiently matters, and then uniting matters, right? So things that are just plain boxes like this one, I'm going to zoom right in here and just kind of see what's going on. And you've got the shadow there and the edge of the building, right? This one's pretty easy, so I just go like that. And I think there's another shadow and a space between that and the next building. And sometimes you need to zoom in to kind of see what's going on. Sometimes you need to zoom out and just kind of get a general sense. For instance, here it looks like there's either a strange shape to the building or something like that, but for efficiency's sake, I'm not going to get bent out of shape about it, and I'm going to just do that. I'm going to call it good. All right, so here we go. We're getting going with some digitizing, and do that again. And I like to have my rectangles about 65% transparent or 50%, so I can see underneath them. I like it to be pretty bold so that I can kind of go back and forth and see what's going on. You can always go back and toggle over here too if you need to see what's going on. So I'm going to select, Alt, click, drag, and I don't know if you can see, but if I let go of the Alt, right, that little icon disappears, and if I let go, then it just moves it, and that's no good. So I need to make sure I hold the Alt key down and click and drag. And then I tend to, like, when I drag, just so fewer number of clicks, I would go line up one corner, grab the other corner, and go for it like that. There's a lot of interpretation. I don't know if you can see, somebody might consider that part of a building. I think I can see the peak of the roof here and each kind of sloping side. So I don't know if that's a shadow or what that is, but I don't really think that's part of the building. And that's just part of it. You're going to have to make some judgment calls and just kind of go for it. And here's another section where this could be a cover it. This could be, actually, I think it's just the shiny edge of a gable. Sometimes, for instance, I think this might be a garden plot and this might be a porch, right? So I'm probably going to make that the only building footprint there. But I think this actually is part of the building footprint right there. So we're moving right along. All right, here's a good example down here. I'm going to make, this is an irregularly shaped house that I think is all connected. And even if it wasn't connected, it's close enough that we can't tell if it is or isn't. So I'm going to make this one building. And luckily, you can kind of see the peak of this gable is on that roof, and then it comes down there. So we know that the edge of the building is here, even though it's the shade, this is the same shade as this parking lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go like this and grab it like that. And now I'm going to shift click here and bring it down. And what I'm doing is I'm creating an intentional overlap. Okay, well, I'm actually going to, what I'm doing is I'm actually, I don't know if you can see, but this building tilts away from the nadir, and the nadir, of course, is the center of the image, where the image right below where the satellite or plane was taking the image. So you see how it's kind of, the footprint is actually this right here, right? The roof print kind of tilts away a little bit. So what I'm going to do is go like this. Oopsie, I didn't mean to do that. And then I assume that this peak here, I'm actually going to go like that. Like that. Yeah, I don't think these buildings actually are connected. This is a bad example. And I twisted that one, so I'm actually going to delete this. I think they're actually the same orientation, so you know, you have to kind of just get used to this. It's the fudge factor. So I don't know if you can tell, but we're aiming for footprints, not roof prints, right? The roof is the best indicator we can kind of have, and we have to use that as a proxy, but it's really where the base of the building touches the earth that we're trying to represent. So so I'm actually going to leave it at that. I'll have to find a different irregularly shaped building. Here's one over here. I'll try that one. So when we have an irregularly shaped building, which is most buildings that ever existed, it gets dicey, right? So let's try. This is an easy one. I'll start here. This looks like a garage or something like that. So what I do is I line it up. Oops, I didn't mean to twist it. And the main takeaway is that we want everything to kind of line up as exactly and perfectly as possible, right? We don't want this file to have like a kink in it right there, and we want these all to be 90 degrees. So I could Alt and drag if I wanted to create this second shape. And the smart guides, I don't know if you can see, but that little magenta line is helping me keep it exactly lined up. If I do that, oh, it's gone, and I'm going to get a little kink right there. But so I could do it this way, and then what I would do is I would just do that and then click and drag like this, right? And now if I shift click both of these, I can unite them, and it will create one compound path for the whole building. Another way to do it, instead of Alt click and drag, is to just copy, and then Control Shift V is paste in place, and then I can just grab that corner and do the same thing. So for buildings where there's a lot of different shapes and it's all the same orientation, I'll often just copy and paste in place and drag corners in the most efficient way I can think of. So now I would have to unite these, and the slow way to do that is Shift click, and then I would go to Pathfinder, which is, oopsie, this window, and it's this command that I wanted to do, right? Unite them like that. It's absolutely imperative that you not open this window and click that button every time. It's just so much more efficient to create a macro. And so in Illustrator, you can go to Actions, and under Actions, you'll find Unite is one of the kind of default actions you can create a keyboard command for. So you can just double click that, and it's not set as anything, but I'm going to make mine, I don't know, function 4 or something like that. And if you want, you can add Shift and Control if you want to have multiple functions per function key, but I think that's good for me. So function 4, okay. Now I hit the function key in function 4, and it unites them. So so now whenever I create a complex object, I can unite it pretty quick, which is important. Control Shift A deselects everything. If I don't want to keep going and grabbing new rectangles, I can just copy and have one on my clipboard. So now no matter where I go, I've just got one that I can paste, and it will always be put in the center of the screen, right? And then as I go to new regions with different orientations, I can twist them and just copy a new one for the clipboard. So let's go to a bigger object like this one right here. So now if I was to create this, right, my tilt isn't really that perfect for this particular building. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make it kind of long here, and then I'm going to line it up as best I can. You know, that's looking pretty good. And even if it doesn't quite fit, our goal is to create attractive data for the base map. And we're trying to get within a couple of pixels if possible, but this isn't going to be used by civil engineers or anything, right? This is just for cartography and planning purposes only. So we expect the data to be imperfect, but we're trying for perfection, just so that when we create the map at a decent scale, it looks professional and it looks detailed. So part of that is we're not going to create this angle, right? That angle is kind of negligible. It might be an artifact of the image. I don't even know. So our goal is to create rectilinear objects wherever possible. So for instance, here's one, right? There's one building. So now I want to create the other ones. This is this is fringy. That's almost significant. I might come back and get that. But right now I'm going to go copy and paste in place. I'm going to grab this corner, bring it up here, and create intentional overlap. And now I'm going to shift click and drag like that. Boom. So that covers that. And now I'm going to drag this guy up like that. Create an intentional overlap so that it will unite. And I'm going to shift click like this. Boom. And I'm going to not shift click. I keep saying shift click, but I mean alt click. So I'm duplicating, right? I didn't mean to say that, sorry. So there's another one, and I've just got a couple more shapes, and then I'm good to go. Alt, and then I'm going to use the smart guide. See that magenta? It's hard to see in there. That magenta is keeping it directly in line so that this edge is going to be perfect, right? So that's that. And you know what? I might just go back and copy, paste in place, and I'm going to grab this corner and drag it like right there. So a lot of it's just kind of that weird mental math of what's the most efficient number of clicks, right? And now I can function F4 and unite it all. And there's my building footprint. So ideally you can do something like that in a little less than a minute. And as you go along, you have to kind of create this schema in your head of how much time is it worth to try to fuss and get everything perfect, and how much time can you just kind of barrel through and make sure we get enough enough structures. Yeah, it's a lot. So I don't want you to get bent out of shape too much. You have to kind of just get into a rhythm, and then I'm going to be looking at it all, but it's like whatever the fewest number of clicks I have to make after is the best. So we're shooting for perfection, but we know it's not perfect, right? Is that perfect? Nope. But it covers the footprint within probably 5 or 10 feet of error, and it's completely adequate for whatever parcel that's sitting on to represent the built space. That's the most this will ever be used for is really coarse estimates of built space. And then other than that, it's just for cartography. So we might join some of these buildings with attributes based on which parcel they're in, but mostly we're just trying to create an attractive layer that we can symbolize, because there are ways to automate this that I've tried before, but it just doesn't look very good, and the client will pay enough money for us to digitize it. So, and it's a useful layer. It's a useful shapefile layer down the line. I'm trying to think if there's any other things that I'd like to say. Yeah, the tilt from the nadir is the biggest issue, right? We're shooting for the footprint on the ground, but the roof print is the best we have. So, you can kind of see, read the shadows as best you can. You can kind of tell, yeah, I don't know. I wonder if that's all I should really say, and we can talk. It's really tough to figure out what buildings are actually buildings, but there's a lot of vestibules and porches and things that I don't consider part of the principal structure. Neither do I consider anything like trailer to be a structure. But a shed, yes, that's a structure. Anything with a shadow that has a peak is usually a structure. This looks like a cover-it. I would still put it as a structure. We're trying to show what kind of built area there is. And ultimately, if we get something wrong, like oh, well, that structure's not there anymore. Well, then we just hit the delete key. But to go back and redigitize is kind of a process. And so we want to, when in doubt, just put it in and we can delete it if it's wrong. But mostly, yeah, don't get bent out of shape. This pool, that's not a structure, right? Here's an example of a difficult shadow. I think that this is a 2-story house. Here's a screened-in porch or an entryway vestibule. Here's the main house, and I think the shadow is kind of overshadowing all of it. So I would include that in the building footprint, right? I would probably go like this for this building. And I don't know if you can see, but this is tilting away, as I said before, from the nadir. So I go like that, and then this peak of the building, I don't want to try to include that peak because technically I'm now representing the footprint of this building as being this way, right? So like this is actually geographically incorrect. My goal is to try to kind of show roughly where the building sits on its foundation in geographic space, not in this kind of aerial image, which is we know to be flawed. It's a lot of interpretation. If you really get stuck, for instance, let's see, yeah, right here, right? What is going on? There's a lot of shadows. This looks like a building. We don't know how big it is. Go ahead and open up Google Earth, which has the same image that I've been using, but it's just a little, it's a little bit more detailed because I had to georeference it, and anyway, I'll talk to you about that someday. But this is a little clearer now. This looks like one structure here, so I would digitize this all as one structure. I'm kind of happy to say like, all right, this looks pretty good. I might go copy, paste in place and grab this corner and go like that. And then copy, paste in place, go like that. Boom, boom. Unite. And then if I'm unsure, I'm just going to delete it and zoom out and look at it and then toggle back and forth. And, I'm not unhappy with that. It is definitely not perfect, but we got to keep moving. So it's a certain level of fussiness that you just have to kind of decide is okay or not okay. And all of us who do this work will be slightly different, but okay, here's a good example of the tilt, right? If you're here, I really hope that you don't just cover the whole thing and that you don't just cover the roof. We're looking for something in between, right? Either like that. Is that a back porch? I'm not sure. Your call. For my call, I would actually just do that. I don't know if this is helpful anymore. Feel free to just stop watching whenever you need, but I'm going to just do a few more so you can see my thought process. See some grass in there, so I'm okay. I'm going to write like that. And then I could shift click, but I don't want there to be, I don't want there to be a nub, so I got to use that smart guide, that little magenta guide to make sure it's perfect. And then like that. And then an intentional overlap like that. And it looks like there might be a nick in the building there too. So I don't really know, but I might just copy, paste in place, do that. Boom, 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 boom. And yep, that covers the built area pretty well. So it's just kind of about creating that sense of this is the permanent of, the most permanent structure in that spot. So it seems ridiculous, but if you kind of just listen to a podcast, that's what we do, like one every hour or something like that, and take a break and save after the end of the podcast. This took me about a little over 2 hours to do that. So You know, it might be a tall order to finish that in 4 hours, but you know, we're cranking. So anyway, long video. Give me a call if you need.